unsportsmanlike conduct.
It's a trip, ain't it?
The 1620, The Zone.
Mike Ferrin, Sirius XM MLB Network Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, now singing the Mike Ferrin Open, it's Mike Stibbs.
Just make sure it sounds sexy, Stibbs.
Lord Almighty, how can you stand Arizona? Your fair skin must be burning down into your absent soul. Mike, 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 we can barely hear you. It sounds to me like you called us from inside a hole. But your phone calls lift me higher, like the ERA of Mark Pryor. Your hair looks like it's on fire. You're Mike Ferrin. You're just a hunk of burning love. You're just a hunk of
I'm worried that we might need to update this open because he doesn't sound like he's in a hole anymore because we have really good audio as we're live right now on Stibbs TV. We welcome in our dear, dear friend, Mike Ferrin. Hi, Mike.
Did I ever tell you that I figured out what was wrong with my phone?
No.
Like when I call out, it's fine. It picks up the Wi-Fi calling at home, but when I get a phone call in, for some reason, it doesn't like click on the Wi-Fi. And I don't know if you know this, but I live in a valley.
Yes, you do. You did tell me that, by the way. The last few phone calls we had, I would call you and you'd just call me right back.
Yeah. And so it was cleaner. So we finally figured it out.
Does it do that with everybody's phone then? So if you get it,
I don't know. No, it should, like when you like if you're hooked up to Wi-Fi calling, it should connect to it. Just, if you're going to call, but for whatever reason, my phone does not. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Weird. By the way, Mike, Ravi Lula is here. You can't see him because
Robbie.
His computer sucks. So
yeah, my computer's stupid.
He'll ask you questions.
You'll hear him.
Maybe I'll just turn my computer towards him when it's time for him to answer questions. Before we get to baseball, do you have any takes on Nebraska being mad at the Big Ten and maybe going back to the Big 12 like everyone wants them to?
Wait, is that? I was going to ask you guys about this because you know how lightly I follow these stories. I mean, like I get it from the school standpoint. Like, we're not talking about professional athletes here, right? You're trying to keep kids safe, but are they really going to go back to the Big 12? That doesn't seem to make sense. Like, I saw the statement this morning from him, and it's like, come on, I know you guys want Nebraska football to play, but like, let's take a deep breath and think about this for a second. They're not getting paid as professionals as much as it seems like they might be at some colleges, but like, they're actually not getting paid as professionals. That's pretty risky.
Well, the thing is, Nebraska never said anything about leaving the Big Ten, never said anything about going to the Big 12. It was all kind of juiced up just because of some of the little, the
heavy hitter columnist from the state had it just out of nowhere, though. That's the thing. Like, I was reading stuff on, what was that, Tuesday night a couple days ago, and it's like, wait, what is happening here? And that made me wonder if there's some actual smoke where there's fire.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm sure that there probably were some very frustrated people involved with athletics in some of these schools that were like, well, we'll just leave, we'll go someplace else. And so I'm sure it's easy to get somebody on background saying that because they probably offered it up out of frustration. But like, I get it. Like, we're all frustrated, but like, I mean, hell, I haven't eaten in a restaurant in 5 months. We love to go out to eat. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. I'm as frustrated as everybody else is. But unfortunately, these are the hands that we've been dealt. And it's dangerous enough for professional athletes to be playing. They're taking a risk and have a financial future in it. For college kids, like, I don't know. I mean, I love college football. I love college sports. I wouldn't want to be in the position of an administrator because I think the other part of it is that clearly, like as a college baseball fan, and like we talk about college baseball a fair amount in these hits, like with no football, how are you going to fund college baseball? Like that's how it works. Is that, it's not a self-sufficient sport. And how are you gonna fund all of these other sports that schools offer? And that's what's really, been so disappointing about everything that's happened over the last 150 some odd days, right? Is that like
150 years?
Well, it only feels like it. It's March 168th, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mike, it's interesting that you kind of say that because I think that this is going to dovetail pretty well into the baseball discussion because as of late, there have suddenly been talks about college basketball in a bubble environment. And of course, that is coming the same week that we're wondering about a bubble for playoff baseball. I don't even want to ask you how realistic is this. I instead want to ask you, is this what should happen? Because we got the NHL playoffs right now on in the studio. NBA will be on in a little bit. the success that those two leagues have had has been pretty incredible, and it makes me wonder if that's what baseball should do.
Yeah, I think it probably is going to be what they do, even if it's not for maybe this, new opening wild card round where the best of 3 series, but certainly for the bulk of it. I mean, they need to get to the postseason and they need to play it because they haven't made any money this year, and that's going to be the best chance for both the owners to be able to recoup some of the losses and for players to get paid in some semblance of normalcy let's just say like 40% of normalcy for free agency and whatnot. I mean, the Stars are still going to get them. JT Realmuto is going to get his money. George Springer is going to get his money. It's more the kind of the middle class of player that's going to be affected by it. So, I think it's absolutely going to happen. And I think, you remember baseball first floated this idea in March or April, right? About doing it. At that point, it looked like we were talking about a 5 or 6 month season. And I can understand why the players weren't as excited about it, because you were going to be basically locked down without your family for nearly 5 months or 6 months. And if you're talking about it for the span of like 30 days, I mean, that's a pittance compared to what the NBA is doing. So I think it's probably going to happen. I think the commissioner has the discretion to be able to do it. I mean, some of these ideas that keep getting floated don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, you need 4 stadiums is what you should do, and just create like 4-team pods like you would in the NCAA tournament. And if you want to do it, like if you use Southern California and Arizona, or Southern California and the Giants Stadium in San Francisco, those are like 4 hours apart. Just put 4 teams in each spot, let them play and go. And I think that to me is the best route to go. And I think it's what they're probably going to end up doing, because I think it's the safest. It won't be a true bubble in that you're not going to have everybody quarantined for a week or 10 days going into it, but it's going to give you a chance to keep everybody in the same spot, reduce travel, reduce the risk.
Mike, you mentioned the financial issues that the owners are. Hey, Mike, you see me? Stupid PC.
It's nice that you brought your shower curtain in.
Gotta be safe here, man.
Exactly. You mentioned some of the financial aspects of that the owners are going to have to try and recoup at some point. What I guess I don't want to go worst case scenario here, but what are some of the potential ramifications here for some of the teams that maybe are not as financially well off as others? I mean, are we going to see a situation where somebody has to potentially maybe even sell their team or take some pretty drastic measures to stay afloat?
Yes, I think that's absolutely the case. I mean, I think the long-term, I shouldn't say, the middle-term effects of this are going to be felt pretty significantly in terms of teams. Probably there are going to be some teams that undoubtedly are going to need to sell. I think that there are going to be some teams that, aren't just going to be in a very good financial situation because they've lost, more than 40% of the revenue. I mean, 40% of the revenue just by not opening the gates. And then beyond that, they're not fulfilling all of their obligations to a regional sports network. In fact, it's only about 37% of that. So you're only going to get, a little more than a third of the money that you would normally get from your local television contract. And the money that's coming in from the postseason is going to offset that, but most of that is going to go to covering player salaries this year. So, I think it's absolutely going to happen. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to impact a couple of teams are going to have to, or owners are probably going to have to sell. A number of teams are going to significantly cut scouting, player development. You're going to see a huge number of players that are under team control that are between 3 years and 6 years of service time, that those players that are arbitration eligible who are non-tendered this year. Basically, anyone who's not a star has a chance to get non-tendered, because that's not, I mean, the feeling is that there won't be enough money to be able to pay them through the arbitration process. And when that happens, it's going to create a really flooded free agent market, which is part of a free market economy, is that it will drive the price down on those players. So I think all of those things are things that are likely to happen. I don't know exactly. I mean, the Mets are for sale right now, and they're taking final bids in the next 18 days. They were for sale before, but I don't know if not wanting to have control for 5 years is a reaction to the pandemic, or if it's a reaction to the reality that they weren't going to be able to sell the team otherwise, and that there are just enough of the people involved that want to get out of baseball ownership. But there undoubtedly will be some other spots along the way where I think you will see teams sell.
Mike Ferrin joining us on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Mike, speaking of the playoffs, are we getting to a point where we're going to have to start realistically discussing pushing the start of it back just mean, with what's happened to the Cardinals, and you don't think that they'll consider that?
No, I don't think they're going to, because I think that they're tied into those dates because of their television contract. So what's much more likely to happen is to say the Cardinals have played 5 games, right? And they're going to play, as of right now, it looks like they're going to play a doubleheader Saturday against the White Sox and then play a regularly scheduled game Sunday. So they basically have like 55 games to play in 44 days, something like that, 43 days. It's not feasible for that to happen. So what'll happen is that they'll end up playing something like between 52 and 54. And that's a much more likely number, and winning percentage will be what determines it. And I think that that's the reality of what's going to happen. There's no way they're going to be able to make up all 60 games.
Yeah.
Mike, so obviously with the shortened season, we're seeing some weird records and some kind of oddities. What do you think is the strangest thing we've seen so far that might actually continue through either the final portion of the 60 games or into the playoffs?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think, I haven't looked at the numbers, but there've been a lot of bullpen struggles. And I think because of the volume of pitchers, there are a lot of guys that are kind of fringe major leaguers. They're going to be forced into situations that they shouldn't be. And so I would not be surprised if you see some crazy kind of comebacks in that. I think there's a chance that somebody hits 400 this year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, Charlie Blackmon's off to an incredible start. He was hitting 500 going into yesterday's game. So I think those are possibilities. In terms of other records, you could see the ERA record broken, I suppose. But I mean, everything's going to be, in terms of records, is going to be given with a caveat based on the fact that it was a complete season, but it wasn't a full 162 games or even a full, or a full season. Like 1995 was 144 games. That feels much more full than what this one does. So I'm not sure if there's anything outside of that. Maybe a couple of the records it will be. I think you're starting to see the play improve a little bit. Offense has got ticked up in the last week, but I think overall you're starting to see the play improve as well.
It's Chi from Sweet 98.5 is behind Stibbs. Along those lines, what do you make of the Astros at this point? Like, what is and isn't concerning about their play 8-10 through 18 games so far?
Their bullpen is terrible. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Is they had at one point they were running like 9 rookies and Ryan Presley out there. And while they have guys like Roberto Ozuna, who's going to try and rehab before having Tommy John surgery, trying to come back, I don't know that he's going to be able to, and that even in some guys like Chris Davinsky and Brad Peacock, who are veteran major leaguers, that it's going to have that significant an impact. I mean, they're also hurt in the rotation by not having Verlander, who again is going to try and come back, but we'll see whether or not that's a possibility for him. If at this point surgery would cost him all of next year too. So I think those are some of the things that really stand out about them. I mean, they're going to be fine offensively. I mean, it's a good offensive team, but their pitching is really in shambles, and they just have a lot of guys that aren't qualified to be in the big leagues that are pitching out of the pen, and they're going to lose a lot of games that they would win in previous years. I don't think it's a fait accompli that they're a playoff team at this point.
Mike, I'm a Red Sox fan, and I just want to know, why are they bad and how long are they going to be bad for?
They're bad because they don't have any pitching.
That's true. I don't recognize almost anyone they throw out there.
You don't have a whole lot on Kyle Hart, who's making his big league debut tonight.
Yeah, he's not. I don't have high hopes there.
Kyle the Hitman Hart.
Brett's nephew. No, former
Hitman is a terrible pitcher.
He's a Big Ten pitcher. So, no, I mean, I think it's really just that their pitching is terrible. I mean, that's, like as much as the Mookie trade, impacted them in that they lose, a great player. They also lost David Price in that trade, and Chris Sale's out for the year. Eduardo Rodriguez is out for the year because he's got myocarditis as a side effect of COVID. So there's not a whole lot of hope for them this season. I don't know that they necessarily can fix the pitching this winter. Their farm system's not in great shape, but I think by 2022, they'll be able to probably, have spent enough in free agency that they'll be competitive again. The thing is that they're not going to be they're not going to be a rollover bad team, but they're going to run into, when you play the Rays and you play the Yankees and you play those teams with good offenses, they're going to get knocked around quite a bit. So, it's not going to be fun. Just be glad it's only 60 games this year.
So by the time that the baseball season might actually be normal again, the Red Sox might be competitive again. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you like. I would think that they're probably emboldened by what's happened. They're probably going to play close to 162, if not the full slate next year. So I don't know that there's necessarily an argument for that. So, I mean, it's just a matter of whether or not, or how soon you'll be able to get fans in the stands, which may not happen until, who knows when. So, I mean, there's fans in other places where there isn't a vaccine. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe everybody locks down in the winter because it's cold and flu season too. So, it makes it easier to get people to stay at home, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because 2021 is not likely to at least start in a normal manner for sports as it was, like what we saw in January of 2020, when we thought what we thought was going to happen in 2020 is not going to likely happen at the beginning of 2021. So
hell year continues, but as Steve writes on the YouTube page, neat D-back hat. I'm a fan. That's a sharp looking hat.
I'm a big fan of the 3930s, the ones that are kind of flex, and I like the ones with the mesh. And so this is one of my recent purchase. Yeah. Well, I've got a giant melon, and I sweat like I stole something. So
are the 3930s the elastic in the rim, or are they straight snapback?
No, they're elastic. I don't like snapbacks, and so the fitted ones are too.
The 5950 are the on field, right?
Right. Yeah, and like some of those are
like
cool.
the batting practice.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, they're kind of like that. Yeah, they're more like that. But I really like those. And there's a couple of different styles. There's a mesh one, and then there's another one that's not mesh. I don't know what it is. It's more like a breathe-through material. But these are my favorites. I like.
Did you say you had to purchase it? Did they not give you any swag?
I mean, I get polo shirts every year, but no, I get a discount at the team store, man. Like,
good to know. I'll hit you up.
40%.
He is Mike Ferrin. He works for the Diamondbacks, and he gets 15% off at the team store. That's pretty cool. Also, Sirius XM MLB Radio. Mike, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week on our normal day and time on Tuesday.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. That is Mike Ferrin. He usually joins us on Tuesdays. Thank you to Ferrin for being up for moving to later in the week because of all the news. All right, when we return...
I think that was the first time, not to interrupt you, that was the first time his TV was on. That too.
Oh, okay.
But his TV was on in the background. I couldn't stop watching his television.
Yes. At one point, I saw a guy fall into the stands, and I was going to try to take a picture because it looked like the butt was on Ferrin's ear, but I took the screenshot a little too late.
At least we didn't have like a Urban Meyer situation where some rando naked guy comes in.
I guess we kind of did when Chi was walking by, and then Stibbs started turning the microphone because she was sitting there just waving at us. I thought she was waving at me, and then I realized, she's just waving at Stibbs. Yeah. Everybody in the building loves Stibbs.
What can I say?
I don't understand it.
He's a lovable guy.
And there we go. Alyssa now waving.
I love Stibbs.
She loves Stibbs. See, once again, everyone loves Stibbs.
I'm a great person.
Stibbs is okay. All right, when we return, spring football, how feasible is it? Jeff Brom has some ideas on how and when and why. I mean, not why.
And who.
All that stuff.
What?
Which. Yeah.
What?
Wow,
Where?
yeah. Maybe it'll be basketball players playing football. That and more. It's Unsportsmanlike Conduct on 1620 The Zone.